have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no.
Come take a look at my dream world.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat. If you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Gift Friday, no weekend.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Welcome back to your favorite live sports show, not named Hit Your Free Throws podcast, nor Go Talk with Marcus. Yes, indeed, it is hashtag this just in, but I did bring members from those two podcasts. Dwayne Marcus, it has been a long time in coming. How are you, buddy?
I don't appreciate the attack I endured as soon as I logged into the call for tonight. I thought this was a place where friends can get together and talk.
No, apparently not. Until we can get Dwayne re-signed here or get back in on the call. Oh, here we are. Sorry about that, Dwayne, and missed everything he said just now. For the first time ever, Jalen from Hit Your Free Throws podcast. What's going on?
Appreciate you guys for having me on. I've been a long-time listener, mainly through social media, but first time actually hopping on the podcast, so it's going to be good to be able to have this conversation with you guys talking about the NBA Finals.
Especially as you and Dwayne get to carry on your beef from last week.
Yeah.
Neil needs no introduction. Y'all are comfortable, and y'all know Neil all the years, but sometimes we bring him out from the basement, sometimes we don't, but yeah. What's up, Neil? Speaking of good viewing, the Denver Nuggets threw away a double-digit lead or multiple double-digit leads to surrender a one-love lead in this finals 111-108 victory to the Miami Heat, who tied the series at 1 apiece. Jay, that's the first time on the podcast. I'm going to start with you. How did the Miami Heat even the series?
I think the big thing is hitting the three ball at a high clip. Hitting 17 threes in a game is big time in this league. And when you play against a team like the Denver Nuggets that can score the ball at a high rate, hitting 17 threes is a great equalizer. Another big thing defensively, they did what a lot of people want the Denver Nuggets to do. That's force Nikola Jokic to be an offensive threat, to look for his shot. If he's going to take 20-plus shots on a night, that's technically beating the Denver Nuggets in terms of getting what you want, because recently Mikal Bridges was actually on an interview, and he had mentioned a lot in terms of what it was like guarding Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets last season as part of the Phoenix Suns. And he mentioned the way that we stopped them, the way we competed against them was make Jokic look for his offense. Jokic wants to be a guy who gets his other teammates involved, get those guys going from beyond the arc, get those guys in the flow. And when that doesn't happen, those guys' rhythm is all out of tune, and it forces this team to become a bit more one-dimensional. And we saw that put them in a really bad pocket, because if you look at the shot chart for this team, the only two guys who took double-digit attempts were Jamal Murray and Jokic. Outside of that, the next highest was 9 from Bruce Brown. That's really limiting in terms of the diversity. So Miami was able to force them into something they don't want to do, and it worked out really well for them.
Do you buy this notion, Dwayne, force Nikola Jokic into being a scorer? Was that the game plan that led to Miami evening this series?
Just like you, Justin, it's very rare when the great when the great Jalen Dixon is correct. But he's correct this time around. That is 100% accurate. When you're looking at the way the Denver Nuggets like to play basketball, they like to play basketball through Nikola Jokic as a passer, not through Nikola Jokic as a scorer. There's a reason why in the 3 games that Jokic has scored at least 40 points in these playoffs, they've lost all 3 of them. It's because those other guys around him, like your Michael Porter Jr.'s and your Bruce Browns and your Aaron Gordons, they're not getting involved. They're not getting those touches, and they're not being able to make those opposing defenses pay for leaving them open or for not paying more attention to them and for giving all their focus to Jokic or Murray because of the gravity that they demand as offensive players. So probably for the first and only time tonight, I agree with Jalen. That was done by Miami last night.
It's almost as if I brought this pair on intentionally, almost. Neil, do you have anything to add, or are you chiming in and piggybacking on these guys' points that Miami essentially forced Jokic to be in a scorer, and that's what led to 1-1 in the finals? Push pass, I love it. Jay, I'm disappointed for you in falling into this luxury or this comfort hole that Neil and Dwayne Marcus typically bring on this show, right? And I was hoping that you would have a different opinion from Dwayne, so I'm going to do it for you. And to say, I'm going to channel my inner Eric Spoelstra here and say, y'all are wrong. So first, right, to bring up the point, right? Obviously, you have to hit shots, right? And that's what happened. They hit almost half of their 3-pointers as opposed to what 13 to 39 from game one. So hitting shots was obviously a big situation, especially also I think they shot 49% from the field and 49% from beyond the arc. You're hitting 49% of your threes and shooting hitting 17 of them. You're not going to lose very many playoff games. But to this theory notion of making Jokic a scorer or that's your game plan, I think it's more a byproduct of what happens more so than teams game planning for that. And I'll explain why. There were three main strategies that happened, and it would look like teams are going out there making Jokic a score, but I don't think that's what happened. The first one was starting Kevin Love and playing him 22 minutes. And the reason they did that was to put a bigger body on Aaron Gordon to stop Aaron Gordon from bullying smaller defenders. And Aaron Gordon was particularly useless in that game. As a byproduct of that, it then allows them to put Jimmy Butler on Jamal Murray for most of the game because Jimmy Butler obviously is one of the stronger defenders for the Miami Heat because they're not very big. So two things. They put Kevin Love to guard Aaron Gordon, and then they moved Jimmy on to Jamal Murray. And you saw the difference between game 1 and game 2 of Jimmy spending more minutes on Jamal Murray. I think also the third and most important point, we all know they play that zone, but it wasn't your traditional 2-3 zone. And enough of us that's played basketball know that the way to attack a zone is to get to that soft spot in the middle right there at the free throw line. Miami knows that, that's where Jokic lives. And once he gets the ball, that's where his distribution point is. The difference they made is that they weren't exactly playing a traditional 2-3. I think it was more like a 1-3-1. And there they met every time that Jokic was at free throw line. Somebody met him there on those passes. And then as a part of that, playing not a 2-3, they took away that backdoor lob for Aaron Gordon. Like, they took all of that away. And so I don't think it was Miami going out and saying we're going to make Jokic a scorer, more so than it was a byproduct of the changes that they made, saying this is what we're going to do. And Jokic's response was just, well, I'm going to score now, more so than Miami saying I'm going to game plan and make you a scorer. Go ahead, Neil. Yeah, Dwayne, chime in.
I don't.
Dwayne?
I just, sometimes I come on this show and I forget who I'm dealing with. Like, I forget who I'm dealing with sometimes. Justin, you make things so complicated all the time for no reason. Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, they're the one team in basketball today where every team looks at them and says, if your best player beats us, that's fine. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, in every other situation, right? You look at the Boston Celtics. Teams play the Boston Celtics, they say, you know what? If Marcus Smart beats us, we'll live with that. If Derek White beats us, we'll live with that. But it better not be Jason Tatum. It better not be Jaylen Brown. Right? And I can go down the list. The Denver Nuggets are the only team where their best player can have a great game and opposing teams are okay with it. Why? Because it's like what Neil mentioned. As long as he doesn't have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, some insane number of assists, that means that those guys around him, with the exception of Jamal Murray, because Jamal Murray is his own entity and he can still get his whether Jokic has those assists or not because he's just that great on the ball. As long as Michael Porter Jr. isn't getting his, as long as Aaron Gordon isn't getting his, and Bruce Brown, like, teams can live with that. And so while you may be correct that it wasn't an intentional game plan of, hey, let's just let Jokic go off on the box as it pertains to putting the ball in the basket. What I do think we need to give Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat credit for is the fact that they recognize that this is a basketball team where the supporting cast means so much more than any other supporting cast in basketball. And in order to neutralize the Denver Nuggets, and in order to win a game on the road, or in order to win a game in general against the Denver Nuggets, you have to neutralize that supporting cast. Like, that is the heart and soul of the Denver Nuggets. We've seen, and Jalen and I got into this about it on my show, like, we've seen Jokic play bad games, but the Nuggets still win because the supporting cast did what they were supposed to do, right? And as I said before, the Denver Nuggets have lost all 3 games where Nikola Jokic has scored over 40 points. What does that mean?
Don't give away any stats yet because we're going to get to that.
I'm not
Don't rush the
rushing
brush,
any
as we would
rush,
say
bro.
in Barbados.
Stop dropping
We're gonna
these
get there.
weird catchphrases on me like at random times when I'm in my flow, bro. Like, why are we doing that? Nikola Jokic dropped 40. Good for him. I think we need to give the Heat more credit because I do think a part of it was intentional, and I do think we need to look at that and say maybe the Heat recognize that allowing Jokic to score isn't the worst thing in the world.
Or maybe he's just that good and you can't stop him from scoring. Jalen, then, in that regard, with what Dwayne says, do you give Miami a legit shot now to win this series?
I mean, I still pick I still pick Denver in 6. So I mean, them winning game 2 didn't really shake me up too much. If Marcus remembers how we addressed it, the 2 games that I actually said was the most important in terms of this series, I think in terms of establishing flow, was going to be game 1 because of the established break by the Denver Nuggets. Having a 9-day break is huge, especially because that's unprecedented for the NBA Finals. On the opposite end, the Miami Heat are coming off of game 7, the adrenaline rush of coming off a big game like that one and being able to advance. That was one of those things that I thought either something was going to be established by the Denver Nuggets in terms of blowing off the rust and being able to have a very good game, which ended up happening, or the opposite end of the spectrum being the case that the Miami Heat are coming off of the high of a game 7 and momentum swings in a way that they come out and punch heavy in game 1. Obviously, the pendulum leaned more in the favor of the Denver Nuggets, but I thought game 2 was going to be more of an equalizer one way or another off that. I think game 3 is going to be much more telling heading back to Miami because now both teams have seen a version of what can win basketball games for the killer styles. For Miami, I think I want to go based off something that you mentioned from an X's and O standpoint that kind of supports all of our points in terms of Miami game planning in favor of letting Jokic score. I think by you mentioning Kevin Love getting the start on with the focus of covering Aaron Gordon and with Jimmy Butler being able to have more of a primary function as a defender on Jamal Murray, that functions as a way of shutting the water off for the guys around Nikola Jokic. I think the best way to identify the game plan Miami went in with is not even just the assist or the lack of assist by Nikola Jokic. Let's look at the fact that he had more turnovers than he had an assist in this game as well. It was 5-4. Nikola Jokic takes care of the basketball better than most big men in the league, especially for a guy that has the kind of usage level that he has. For him to pretty much lead all players in this game in terms of turnovers with 5, that's big time in terms of making him a decision maker in ways that forced him to be more aggressive offensively because to get to 41, there had to be a rain check from the turnover count that says, I can't get my guys the ball the way I normally want to. That happens when you get a bigger body in Kevin Love on the floor. That happens when you get a guy with an all NBA defender caliber of Jimmy Butler on your second best scorer or your second best player on that team. So I think that's one of those things where when you look at what Miami has capable for them, I think X's and O's wise, there's a lot of things that can make this series very competitive. I'm just taking Denver because I don't think Miami can shoot the ball the way they did the other night. I don't think they can shoot the ball at that clip consistently. I think they've shown us spurts of that throughout the postseason, but Denver is not going to get held to 108 consistently. It's not going to happen.
Dwayne, do you agree? Are you still giving, or no, considering these finals are squared up, are you giving Miami a legit shot to win these NBA finals?
Heat to win the finals to begin with. I
didn't know that.
I have no reason to doubt. Listen, when you look at game 1, we look at how bad Caleb Martin and Max Drew shot from the field, how the team shot from the field all together, how poorly Jimmy Butler played in game 1, and for them to lose by 11 points. That there are no moral victories in sports. I firmly believe that. I will never not believe that. But if you're the Miami Heat, you do feel good after that to lose by what they lost by, considering how poorly they shot. To come around then and to withstand a 40-14 run by the Denver Nuggets and then open up the fourth quarter the way that they did, specifically because of Duncan Robinson, that means a lot. Here's the deal, right? Game 1, as Jalen said, and I agree with Jalen on my show, I thought that game 1 was super important. But the most important game of this series is game 3. And the reason why the most important game of this series is game 3 is because the Miami Heat, entering game 3 of every series, has found a way to control home court for the next 5 games, right? If you look at the Bucks series, it was 1-1. If you look at the Knicks series, I believe it was 1-1. If I'm not mistaken, and they were up 2-0 against the Celtics. They have had home court advantage every step of the way. Winning game 2 does what for the Miami Heat? It gives them home court advantage over the next in a best of 5 scenario, which is what they like to have. We talk a lot about how winning in Denver is difficult, and it's difficult because of the altitude. But winning in Miami is also difficult, not because of the altitude, because it's as close to sea level as you could get without actually being at sea level. What's difficult about playing on the road in Miami is because that Miami crowd is ravenous. And the way that these other guys play, and by the other guys, talk about the role players, the Max Struses, the Caleb Martins, the Gabe Vincents of the world, the way that they play at home is unprecedented when you're looking at how well role players perform at home. We've had conversations a lot on this show over the years about how important home court advantage means and what that looks like. Home court advantage is not for your star players. It's not for Jimmy Butler. Home court advantage isn't for Tyler Herro if he's healthy. Home court advantage isn't even for Bam Adebayo, though it's very consistent. Home court advantage is for those role players, those guys that love to play at home, those guys that love to that want to send the hometown fans happy. Game 3 is super duper important. And when you look at how well the Miami Heat played defensively last night, and I think that their performance defensively, even though they allowed over 100 points, their performance defensively was one of the best performances we've seen from the Heat defensively all postseason, because it wasn't just an individual effort of a Jimmy Butler, or it wasn't just the individual effort of a Bam Adebayo. It was a team effort collectively to figure out a way to shut down the Denver Nuggets, or at least limit the Denver Nuggets so that they can stay alive. This is a scrappy basketball team, and all they need is a crack in the door or a chink in the armor, and they can attack. And they're very quick. They're very quick about it, and they're not an explosive offense. I was never in doubt for the Heat because I had no reason to be in doubt for the Heat. Like I said, they have figured out a way to go into Game 3 either tied up or up every single step of the way down the coast of the postseason. And now if they win Game 3, I would be shocked if they lose at all.
Ooh. Same thoughts, Neil. You are giving Miami a punter's chance to win here? I can hear you. Okay, do you want me to continue on while you get yourself fixed in? I'm not sure if y'all really can't hear Neil, but I will go with Joe. What I will say, yeah, for sure. I didn't pick Miami to win this series, but obviously, like, this is a straightforward shot. Like, I mean, it's an obvious answer that, yeah, they can win the series simply because they win games or they've won postseason series on their defense.
They should be able to hear me
on
now.
The discipline of their defense.
Mm-hmm.
They should be. So go ahead. Well, I'll finish out here, Neil.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quickly. Their disciplined defense, they execute well on defense. So like that always travels. You may not shoot the ball well on the road or etc., but you're always going. If you're a great defense, like that goes with you, and you saw that in Game 2 for sure in Denver. And then, like Dwayne said, like you're going back home now, with home court advantage, and that's where role players tend to play best. Like we've not seen Caleb Martin play well in any of these 2 games so far, and you can argue the best player in that, from Miami, at least in the Eastern Conference Finals, was Caleb Martin. So now you're going home with the benefit of a 1-1 tie. Now you're probably going to see better games from Max Strus and Caleb Martin. Whether all of their players are going to go off at the same time is left to be seen. And also, Neil and Marcus know I like to say this, and this is probably why I don't like Boston. and I like Miami way more. It helps when your best players are facilitators / playmakers. In that, when the ball is with Bam, when the ball is with Jimmy Butler, you can run your offense through them because they're so much, they're good passers. So it is not a turnover coming. It is not just shoot where defense says, well, okay, at least we know what's coming. With Jimmy, with Bam, with the ball, especially Jimmy towards the end of games, I think a lot of people make the mistake that closers are just scorers. And I hate to hear that because a man with the ball in his hands towards the end of the game, to me, not only has to score, but has to make the right decisions. And in Jimmy and Bam Adebayo, the Heat have two good players in terms of playmaking so that their offense is not going to get stagnant unlike Boston. Go ahead, Neil. Let's finish up the segment.
Yeah, right. Apologies for that just now. But anyhow, as I was saying, Miami can win the title. And to be honest, I would not count them out. Yes, as both Marcus and Jay were saying, you have to feel really, really good to know that you had a game plan and it actually worked. You know what I mean? In terms of your defensive schemes, etc. It must feel good to know that, granted, you shot the ball really, really, really well, but you kind of can rest on the fact that you're going home. You know how you can control home, as Marcus said, and the fact that you can, you can make it very competitive and difficult for all of the other players to get their shot off. Like Michael Porter Jr. was awful in this game, right? Aaron Gordon was decent in the first half, right? But KCP was all right. But the point remains, you make it very difficult for the others to get their points. Now, if you could do that, I mean, it's a tall ask to get it done 3 more times. But to me, it's how I would approach it if I were Miami, and I think they're going to approach it like this: is just focus on next game. Right now, next game, you're focusing on the first quarter, first play, you're trying to set the tempo, you're trying to make it such that it's very difficult for Jokic to find those facilitators that he likes to find, right? You have to make it harder, continue to make it hard on the perimeter. And in my opinion, and the only concern would be your scoring. Yes, you have the firepower to score, but we have seen Miami disappear offensively, particularly those 3-pointers. So if they could somehow weather the storm and say, you know what, let us kind of push tempo, control, and dictate pace, and let us try to get something going toward the rim. Free throws are very important for Miami. You saw it in game 1 versus game 2. So if they could continue to get into the ring, getting free throws, don't rely on that 3 ball. If it's not falling, don't fall in love with it. To me, the only people that I would say have green light would be that boy Strus, Matt Strus, gave Vincent to a less degree. But I kind of let them just feed and eat and enjoy themselves, but don't fall in love with that 3-pointer. And yeah, they could, game by game, we can make a game of it. Will they win? I mean, sadly to say, my odds still the odds are still on Denver. I would love Miami to win simply because I am that person. I want to see Miami win. I want to see the AFC just mess everybody Christmas up. I would love that.
You mean to say that you're upset and hurt because your Lakers got swept in the conference finals and you do not want the team that swept you to win the title is what you want to say, right?
Why are you going for the low blow, Justin? Why are you doing that? Your team's sitting at home because of the Nuggets too. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
I'm rooting for the underdog, man.
Obvious. Yeah, you try to fool everyone with that. So yes, we've all spent the last half an hour crediting the Miami Heat, but in fairness, Denver did lead by double digits on a couple of occasions, especially entering the fourth quarter. So Dwayne Marcus, I feel it's only fair to ask, how did the Nuggets blow game 2?
This is probably going to be the end of me and Jalen agreeing. That's perfectly fine because sometimes Jalen is wrong and sometimes he just needs to deal with it. JD, when you were on the show last week, we were talking, you, me, and TV, we were talking about X factors, right? We were talking about who are the players that matter and what things we need to talk about if certain scenarios happen. And I remember saying that if Bam Adebayo plays great basketball in this series, then we need to talk about that. And what did you say? You said, well, if Bam averages 20 and 10, the Nuggets are still going to win in 6 and it doesn't matter. Well, this is the part where I get to just talk about the greatness of Bam Adebayo through 2 games, which I got to be honest, bro. I don't like talking about it because I think Bam is really inconsistent. But here's the thing, though. Bam Adebayo through 2 games, he's averaging 24, 11, and 5. Against the lowly Boston Celtics, who are one of the best defensive teams in basketball, he averaged 15, 9, and 4. In the regular season, Bam averaged 20 and 9. And I looked at you, Jalen, and I said, if Bam gets close to averaging 25, we need to have a conversation about Nikola Jokic. We need to have a more in-depth conversation about the Denver Nuggets. So, Justin, how did the Nuggets blow this lead? They blew this lead because Bam Adebayo found his rhythm in this game. He played really good basketball offensively, and he played really good basketball defensively. Now, granted, Jokic went off for 40, and let's be honest, as we've all alluded to, Jokic is unstoppable. But when you are a caliber of player like Bam Adebayo, when you are a guy that is consistently in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year, when you're consistently in conversations to be an all-league defender, there is a level of expectation that you should be playing better defensively. Don't get me wrong, Bam Adebayo should be playing better defensively. However, when you look at the other centers that Nikola Jokic has matched up against so far this season, I think you can make a legitimate argument that so far through 2 games in the postseason, Bam Adebayo has played better defense against Jokic on a more consistent basis than any of the other 3 guys that have primarily been guarding Jokic. I think that's a fair argument to make. And when you look at the long-term sustainability of this, and by long-term, we mean, of course, over the course of the series, my one thing is, as long as Bam Adebayo continues to play the way that he's been playing through 2 games, the Denver Nuggets aren't going to have much success down low specifically, because that's what Bam Adebayo does. He's a very versatile defender. And so when you talk about what caused the collapse, so to speak, Robinson had himself a very strong fourth quarter. And that is the Duncan Robinson that got paid and then Heat fans were missing all this time up until now. And I'm sure all Heat fans are glad that he's back. But really, this all boils down to Bam Adebayo. The Nuggets are the superior team offensively. We know that. And so to see the Nuggets jump out to multiple 10-point leads and to go on a 40-14 run is no surprise. When you look at their comeback trail, and when you look at the anchor of that comeback trail to ultimately come back, tie up, and then eventually win this basketball game, that all comes down to Bam Adebayo and how he was able to be consistently the defensive anchor of this basketball team, despite Nikola Jokic going off for 40. So I know it's crazy to kind of give Bam praise when he just gave up 40 to the opposing player, but he's played consistently good defense. And the one thing that's been missing is consistently good offense, not just from Bam, but from everybody. And again, Bam is super inconsistent, and there's no telling what he'll do, what is it, on Wednesday at home in Game 3. But if he plays the way he's been playing, it's not going to be a conversation of how many double-digit leads the Nuggets are going to continue to blow. The conversation is going to be how many games is going to take before the Larry O'Brien returns to South Beach.
Ooh. And just for context, Miami has the second most victories by 5 points or less in the entire season, even as a team that had to go through the play-in tournament as an 8th seed. So, Jay, I'm going to give a chance for you to respond to your biggest critic. How did Denver blow Game 2?
I mean, I think you made a really great point, but I think the other thing that comes with context too, when you talk about Bam Adebayo, is when we were talking about X factors, the huge thing that we talked about was his aggressiveness on offense. And I think although this game was definitely much more efficient, I think Game 1 was more indicative of what I wanted to see from Bam Adebayo offensively. I think all of Marcus's points from a defensive standpoint are correct. I also think that we all picked Bam Adebayo as an X factor. It was because of the two-way ability on both sides to not only need to be more aggressive offensively, in turn forcing Nikola Jokic to step up more as a defender, and then in sense expose him as a low-level defender. But I think also on the defensive end, although he is not as big time as a shot blocker as maybe an Anthony Davis from the previous round, his activity on the perimeter around the basket makes up for that. And I think that's a great point on Marcus's point, talking about how Bam Adebayo contributed to this. The only other aspect that I would probably point to in terms of saying how this comeback really brought upon itself was the shot making of the Miami Heat. I mean, yes, I'm going to bring up the 17 3-pointers again, but I don't really want to beat the drum on that too much. I think it's just the overall contributions from the guys hitting shots at timely points in the game. Gabe Vincent was huge in this game. Yes, 23 points on 12 shots. I think that's big time, but I think it's when he made the shots. I think it's the way he was able to create easy offense. It wasn't a lot of times where it felt like Gabe Vincent was having to work extremely hard to get the baskets that he was getting. He was 4 of 6 from beyond. A handful of them were just kick out opportunities. Those are big time baskets where you just need your guys to hit shots in inconsistency. I think like Marcus mentioned beforehand, the consistency of this Miami Heat offense is going to be the biggest question mark throughout the entirety of the series, because I think we all came into the series understanding that they can guard at a high level, but if they cannot contribute offensively across the board in a way that can hang with what the Denver Nuggets are capable of, it was going to be a long series just based off the fact that Denver is capable of putting up more points than Miami on a night-to-night basis, and that's all it takes to win 4 games and take the series. So I think the biggest thing is Miami's ability to make shots, and again, Bam Adebayo's two-way ability. It's big time for what makes them successful in a series like this one. The big question, I think, is which version of Bam Adebayo lasts throughout this series, because again, Michael Malone said it after game 1. You can live with a game where Bam Adebayo scores 25 points on 26 shots. I think you walk away from that, or what was it, 26 points on 25 shots, excuse me. You can live with the circumstance of that. I think on the flip side of that, Miami likes the idea of, okay, Bam Adebayo takes the step back, only takes 14 shots, but the efficiency is there. The activity around the rim defensively is there. Now you have an equal marriage that makes it where he's effective on both sides of the ball, and it makes him a much more dangerous team. I think shot making and Bam is what makes this series competitive for Miami.
Neil, I'm giving you the chance now to rip on Denver because I know you're just waiting and
Brett. You see,
rubbing your hands like the cockroach at the TV.
Yeah. You know, as Denver, as
Right
Dwayne Marcus said, right? Dwayne said it very well, right? You gotta know why Justin brings certain people on, right? And this all kumbaya thing about Miami. Okay, fine. Miami played well, right? They definitely had a part to play in Denver blowing their lead, but let's all trust and believe Denver really did shoot themselves in the foot. One, they did not rotate well on the perimeter. There were times where either Gabe Vincent, Matt Strus, or Kyle Lowry had wide open threes. Well, wide open threes for the finals, in my opinion. You're a half step late, that's 3 points in your nose. Why are you doing that? Why are you allowing those players to have free shots? Right? I'm always one of these people that are of the opinion that if you're on the basketball court, you can score the basketball. And that cannot be any truer than if you're on the NBA court. If you're on the court, you could score. So why is seeing Gabe Vincent raise up for shots and then the replays are not seeing not one Denver player near him? And when you look at the replay and you look at how there was a mix-up, it is as simple as Michael Porter Jr. or it was KCP or even Aaron Gordon trying to run out there. They were slow to the ball, right? Even Brown, and this is another important thing too, right? Because while their perimeter defense was not up to snuff, right? In the third quarter, specifically coming on to the end of the third quarter, there were back-to-back calls that went against Denver, right? Nikola Jokic got frustrated. He fouled Bam Adebayo, right? All of a sudden, a three from, I think it was from Gabe Vincent or and from Matt Strus or something like that. And then all of a sudden, now you see the lead slowly, getting smaller and smaller, right? Because when you saw Denver start to sink their head, okay, so you're half step slow on that rotation. You got a 3 in your face. Okay, so what you can do about it? You can sulk. You can say, oh, shoot, that's my bad. No, this is the NBA Finals. You got to play every play. You got to forget the other play. You got to know exactly what you did wrong. You have to hold yourself accountable. You have to get out there. Granted, Miami shot the ball really well. Any team that didn't have a player in their shooting cylinder would be good to go from 3 in the NBA Finals. These are the best teams in the NBA right now. The 2 best teams in the NBA. You cannot half-step. You cannot sulk. You cannot get frustrated because this is where Miami will flourish. Miami is mentally stronger than Denver, right? They are mentally tougher than Denver. They know that they're outmatched. They know exactly that this is David versus Goliath, but you know what? They want to see Goliath kill David. They're not going to be in there and lie down and put their feet up like cockroaches. No, they're not. They're going to fight. So what you're going to see is they're going to harass Jokic. They're going to harass Jamal Murray. They're going to make it difficult for Aaron Gordon on those back cuts. They're going to harass Michael Porter Jr. to see if he really about this basketball life or not in the finals. They're going to get KCP. They know he can shoot, but they're going to harass him and make him uncomfortable and force him to put the ball on the floor. Right? So that both brown guys, they want to see if they could really play on a certain level. Yeah, you look scrappy on defense, etc. But let's see the offense. Who you got? You understand what I mean? Because what we're trying to do is get as least amount of players as 5-on-5, but we're trying to get rid of the players. So let it be Jokic and maybe Jamal Murray killing us and nobody else. So you can't hang your head. You cannot sulk. You cannot have this attitude of, oh, cheese on bread, we're losing this. I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do. I'm committing foolish fouls. KCP had 2 fouls on 3-point players. I think there was one where I don't even know what because that was the end of the shot clock. They literally had less than a second left. And the man fouled a 3-point shooter. No. You have to remain disciplined on the defensive end. And if Denver, we talked about just now about Miami winning, that is how Denver is going to lose this series. If they lose it, they're going to lose it on the defensive end because they're going to get frustrated and they're not going to be able to play that physical bully ball in your face basketball that Miami is playing. Miami is not afraid. They literally have nothing to lose here. They were not supposed to be here. So as far as they're concerned, they're going for the ankles. They're going for the jugular. They can try to get a cut into the groin. They're going for the win. Denver can try to finesse it and try to score and look pretty. No, you got to get down the muck and mire if you want to beat Miami. And last night showed me that Denver, you can see the lack of experience in the finals. You can see the lack of experience in the players when they're not getting the calls, when the shots are not dropping, when they're being harassed and frustrated both on the perimeter and inside the key. They're seeing it. Miami is diving on the floor. You know, Denver, like half step slow all over the basketball court, particularly coming into the fourth. Shoot, when Duncan Robertson went off and rolled off how many other points, Denver was like, geez, boy. Woo. I guess that's it, boy. We can't overcome these. What? No, sir. We playing until this buzzer end and we at home, so we cannot go into Miami. It's like, stop with this mentality of, especially going on later into the fourth quarter, stop with this mentality of, oh, we'll get them next time. This is the finals, brother. This is the finals. At the end of the day, every win matters. If I could get 4 straight wins, I will take 4 straight wins. If I could get 4, if I could win 4-1, so be it. But I ain't trying to say, oh, yeah, we can't win this one or we can't get this momentum. Shoot, you could have seen Mike Malone. The man was imploring, man was begging, man was screaming on his sidelines, play the basketball. But they didn't. And, you know, I understand Bam Adebayo and his play, and I understand the 3-pointers at Miami. Miami looked down good last night, but trust and believe, Denver were outplayed, but they were complicit in them losing this game, if that makes sense.
And it does, because to that point, I talked about the attention to detail on defense that Miami showed for most of the game too. And I think it's quite the opposite for Denver. So to your points, Neil, I honestly thought that Denver threw away this game more so than Miami won it. And this isn't to give or to take away any credit for the Miami Heat, because they did have indeed a game plan and they paid attention to detail. But the problem is when you look at Denver, right, starting with Contavious Caldwell-Pope, as you said, Neil, had 2 dumbass fouls out on 3-point shooters. Like, I don't know how you get to the NBA Finals and commit such atrocities. Then the biggest culprit of the entire night, Michael Porter Jr. I'm not sure what the game plan was, but it couldn't have been what he was doing. So, you know me, I love the analytical side of basketball. So a lot, I will watch people like JJ Redick as he breaks down things. And he showed 2 plays in particular on his Old Man and the 3 podcast. 2 plays in particular which Duncan Robinson scored and Gabe Vincent. Those delayed pin down screens. When, as he said, when you're not giving up an advantage or mismatch in terms of switching, on those delayed pin down screens, you just have to switch. And so the first one was both players went with Duncan Robinson on the cut, leaving Gabe Vincent wide open. I don't know how you do that. And then the second one, again, the defenders failed on the pick. They didn't switch, and it was a layup from Duncan Robinson. Like, anytime you're giving up a layup to Duncan Robinson, you've lost. you can't be giving up layups to Duncan Robinson. And then, as I said, like Michael Porter Jr. Oh, there, look, absolutely lost it there. And for all that, for all that Miami did offensively or defensively, should I say, I hope people realize that Denver still shot 52% from the field, still shot over 40% from behind the arc. It was on the defensive end that Denver really threw away this game. As I said, with Contavious Caldwell-Pope and those fouls, Michael Porter Jr. did not know what the hell he was doing defensively. And it just seemed like time and time and time again, Denver just they were not disciplined defensively. They did not pay attention to detail on defense. And as I said, for simple situations where you know you're not going to give up a mismatch on defense, on any screen off the ball, you just have to switch. That's common sense in basketball, especially in today's, because you can't be a step late in recovery. You can't be a step late in trailing a cutter. It just can't be that way. But in terms of also throwing away game, going to come to you now, Jay, for the next segment. Denver were only down 3 with the last possession. Jay, should Mike Malone have called a timeout, or are you comfortable with what happened?
Look, man, literally earlier today, I watched this same possession back about 6 times. 12.7 left on the clock off the rebound. You get the chance to call a timeout, advance the ball. You have 2 of the best pick and roll offensive creators in the league in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. You put yourself in a scramble situation where you don't have any kind of head-to-heads. Everybody's covered up. Everything is kind of discombobulated even after things kind of settle at the top of the key. And there was a switch at the top of the key around the 7.5, 7.8 mark that left Nikola Jokic on Gabe Vincent at the top of the key. And instead of getting the ball to not only your best player, but the guy who may arguably, if we're talking about shooting a 3 for a potential to tie the game up, we're talking about a significant height advantage for a guy who is a legitimate 3-point threat in Nikola Jokic over Gabe Vincent in terms of who would be contesting him, as opposed to Jimmy Butler contesting on a Jamal Murray 3-point shot, which is your best defender against, yes, a big-time 3-point shooter, but somebody that the contest will apply a lot more pressure to in that closing moment. I think if you're Michael Malone, you're one of the better X's and O's coaches in the league. That's a good portion of what's gotten to you this point, outside of the fact that, yes, you have a big-time guy in Nikola Jokic to help run the floor for you in terms of running things offensively. I think if you get a chance with 12.7 seconds, the ball advances, you get to call a baseline, you get to call a sideline out of bound play to create an offensive opportunity with the full 12.7 seconds for 2 of your better offensive creators to create either shots for themselves or, granted, this was not a great 3-point shooting game for anybody for the Denver Nuggets, but in a moment like that one, with those guys on the floor, with a handful of other 3-point shooting threats on the floor, you create a much better opportunity for yourself than Jamal Murray dribbles out clock until bailout 3 over the best defender on the floor for the Miami Heat. At least per minute.
Take it away, Dwayne, because I know you want to disagree here.
I mean, I don't really know what to say. Like, this is Brandon Staley from the Chargers-Raiders game a couple years all over again. If Jamal Murray hits that shot, are we talking about whether or not the timeout needs to be taken or not? No, we're not. It's really that simple. That is just what happens. Like, Jamal Murray hits that shot. We're not talking about Mike Malone should have called a timeout. Now, I don't disagree with the things that Jay said. Like, everything you said is 100% correct. I don't disagree with you. I think in the moment as fans, when you say, man, call the timeout, you got 13 seconds just about on the clock. You get that sidelines out of bounds. But he hits that shot. We're not coming up here tonight talking about whether or not he should have taken the timeout. So me personally, I have always erred on the side of it doesn't matter. Coaches, being a coach is a tough job because it's a catch-22. Like, if you don't do it and he hits the shot, great. If you do it and he doesn't hit the shot, it's like, that sucks because he didn't hit the shot. If you do it and he hits it, great. Like, you know what I mean? You don't do it. Like, it's a really difficult thing to do. It's a tough thing to manage. So me personally, in the moment, do I think you call the timeout? Sure. I think it's a great, I think that is the smart play to make, the smart decision to make. But timeout, we're not talking about whether or not he should have called the timeout to begin with. So I don't really think it matters all that much. Because I think even with 13 seconds left, there's still it's not like it didn't work. Jalen, you mentioned it perfectly. They got the switch for Nikola Jokic to the top of the key. So it's not like them not calling the timeout put them in a situation where, like the Jordan Poole situation against the Lakers, where you're just taking a really bad shot and there's still 4 or 5 possessions left. Like, something evolved on that play, and unfortunately, either Jamal Murray missed it or like there was a miscommunication there because they got what they wanted. Because I agree with you, Jalen. When I was watching the play, I was like, oh, well, this ball is going to Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is going to hit the shot. We're going to OT. The ball never got to Jokic. So I'm going to err on the side of if Jamal Murray hits that shot, it's not a big deal. But also, if Jamal Murray passes the ball to Nikola Jokic with the mismatch at the top of the key, he hit that 3 and we're going to overtime anyway. So I think what I really think boiled down to it was there was a miscommunication at some point in the final seconds between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, or between Jamal Murray and some other player on the team, that led to the ball not getting to Nikola Jokic. And then unfortunately, Jamal Murray has to heave up a shot from the hash mark, which is almost 30 feet, if not a little bit more, over Jimmy Butler, which is unfortunate. But
I think the only part where I will push back on that is because that switch developed when it did. By the time that it culminated in anything where it could have been a kick out for Nikola Jokic with that shot, it was already too late in the game clock to be able to make that decision. I don't even know if that's a late read by Jamal Murray at that point. I think by that point, there's not enough time. I think the other thing is, and I don't like doing revisionist history when it comes to certain things like this, but the funny part about it is Denver's seen this movie before. Y'all remember Mike Conley in the bubble? The shot that should have ended things once upon a time? Yeah, they've seen this movie before where there's that opportunity to create a much better shot opportunity to win the game, and it goes in the favor of the other team simply because when you are a team that can create in the half court like Denver can, or shoot, like Utah could back when that time came, when they had Donovan Mitchell balling out of his mind, especially in the half court setting. Those are situations where you have to, it's kind of the KYP situation, right? It's the idea of know your personnel. You understand that in the pick and roll, you have a dynamic duo that literally throughout the entire postseason, shoot, you can maybe even make an argument in this very game. Jamal Murray ended this game with 18 points and 10 assists. This dynamic duo from the pick and roll was working effectively in the half court this entire game. And you even look at the way the game shook down, fast break points. Yes, Denver got out and ran. They got 18, but this wasn't a team that was able to thrive out in the open court. If they were able to do that, they would have scored more than 108 because we know what they're capable of when they play out in space. This was a team that was being able to thrive offensively to even keep the game where it was, to even jump out to the 40-14 run was out of killing it in the half court. To create an opportunity now in the closing portion of the game where your best possession goes through your best player, for your best player to not touch the ball on the possession is a miscalculation. Now, again, I agree with you. At the end of the day, we're gonna. I don't necessarily want to say semantics, but if we want to just come down to if Jamal Murray makes the shot, do we have this conversation? I completely agree with you that I don't think we talk about it. But I do think if you look at it strictly from, if we're just strictly answering the question as it is, I think you look at that and you tell yourself, you would much rather live with a possession where your two best pick and roll players in the half court get to truly operate under a set play, a set opportunity, as opposed to what took place. I think the biggest part about it is your best player didn't touch the rock, and it's because they didn't have enough time. That comes down to the fact that you look back at it and it was almost 13 seconds to play with. And under normal circumstances, you should be able to operate and get a much better shot than what they got. But I mean, like I said, if we're gonna play it straight, I agree with you. Jamal, I mean, it barely rimmed out, right? This is a game that could look much different had it just sunk in like it did before. But like I said, Denver's seen that movie before too. And so I think that you understand. I think if you take that into consideration, you understand the magnitude of this. And I think Neil even mentioned it earlier. Like this is the NBA Finals. Like every possession matters significantly. That even means that with 13 seconds left in the game, if it only sends you to overtime, you still have one of the best players in the NBA. Overtime gives you much more of an opportunity than 13 seconds where he does not touch the ball.
I don't know how you follow that, Neil, but try your best.
Well, you know, I can kind of choose a side here. I can go with Marcus because you know, Jay makes excellent points. I think in real time, I didn't have a problem with no timeout. I actually remember the ball coming out and saying, oh, okay, Mike Malone like just got his hand folded like this. And I said, okay, you're not gonna call timeout. Let me see what can happen here. And in real time, I didn't have a problem with it. And then, of course, I saw the replays, and I think that there was nothing wrong in not calling a timeout because they got what they wanted. Now, both the guys are saying it depended on if Jamal Murray missed the Jokic switch, or if he thought that he could have win it for the team, if he bet on himself. I don't know. But if I were Coach Malone, if I'm a fan of Denver, I have no problem with that, because you call a timeout, I guarantee you that would have lessened their odds of tying the game, because you give them time to prepare, you give them time to set, you give them time to know who to look out for and what to happen and what's going on. And then, of course, shoot, you never know. You may force a turnover or make it very difficult, because I think both teams had 2 timeouts at that time. Then you play the timeout game, you force them to burn both of their timeouts. Then it becomes let's see what's going on and everything like that. So I don't necessarily have a problem with not calling the timeout. I think that I understand Dwayne saying the part about if it goes in, we're not talking about this, but hindsight is 2020. I think that had he called the timeout, he may have killed any momentum and chance that they would have actually had on getting a proper look at the ring from Jokic. I actually surprised Jamal Murray decided to take on Jimmy Butler and not, because when I looked around, I like, Jokic is right at the top of the key with Gabe Vincent. What are we doing? Right? So I'm not sure what happened there. I can't put that on the coach. I know that I'm actually surprised no one in the media said it today, that he had 2 timeouts, he didn't use any of them, going into that part of the because they always say it can't carry home timeout, so they don't carry over like minutes or anything like that. So I just found it I found it peculiar, but I thought that it played out how it should have played out, only that Jamal Murray should have passed the Jokic and let him operate either for a 1-2 or a shoot over give Vincent 3. I would rather see the ball rim out with Jokic shooting it at 3 than Jamal Murray with Jimmy Butler on him. I'd rather see that.
And that's why, in my mind, Denver should have called a timeout. I know, and I'm not here attacking Michael Malone, so please understand me. I understand modern basketball is, do not let the opposition go into timeout and have a chance to set their defense. The problem here is twofold. One, you are playing against arguably the most organized and detailed coach in the NBA right now. So you not calling a timeout or not is not getting Eric Spoelstra off guard. And the reason I can say that is just look at the play itself. Miami is so detailed oriented, so paying attention to everything defensively. Who was marking Nikola Jokic before the screen? Jimmy Butler. Why was that, gentlemen? There's a reason that happened. Because Miami knows that in this particular situation, they didn't need a timeout to know that Jamal Murray is coming to run a 2-man game and come off an on-ball screen with Nikola Jokic, which is going to put Jimmy Butler right back where they wanted him. That's why I say, like, you're not catching Eric Spoelstra sleeping.
But hold on a minute, Justin. To counter to that, right? No, I agree with you. But then is it on Jamal Murray to realize what's going on and say, hold on a minute, what is Jimmy Butler back in my face? Therefore, I should think.
But to Jay's point, you don't have that much time. Like, you can't, in that situation, right, especially with somebody long-armed and big like Jimmy Butler, you don't know if you make a pass, he gets his hand on the ball. You don't have that time. The ball's in your hands, and you know you have to get up a shot. So, like, you don't have that time. You can't make that risk. And secondly, and most importantly, I would have been comfortable if you were down 1, or if the game was tied. Yeah, sure, you live in that situation. The problem is when you're down 3, your options are limited. So the defense knows you have to take a 3. So now, essentially, I don't want to say your playbook is cut in half, but what you can do is essentially limited. Like, you can't run certain things because, like, you're not going to punch the lane. Because if you punch the lane and they collapse on you, you can't get a passing angle. Oh, that's the end of the game. So, like, there are certain plays that are limited. So the reason I'm calling a timeout is twofold. One, you don't want to rely on the actual 2-man game itself, right? So when I get a timeout, I'm going to inbound the ball. As I said, I'm going to advance it first, and I'm going to inbound the ball with more time from a half-court set. I give myself more options. So not just on live ball play, but from an inbounds play, I can create and design something that may get somebody free. Miami is likely going to switch every single screen anyway. So the likelihood of somebody getting free for an easy spot-up shot will not happen. That's fine. So I can run to get whoever I want the ball, probably Jamal Murray. I can get him the ball. Then I can go to my two-man game with the understanding now I've called a timeout. The other players not named Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic will understand where they need to be and how to move off the ball. Because if you watch that possession, right, when they go on that two-man game, everyone else is standing around watching. There's no other movement off the ball other than that. In a timeout situation, I can get off ball movement that does not involve Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And again, it is easy for me to sit down here and criticize Mike Malone after the fact, and this is not what I'm doing. But me personally, I'm calling that timeout because I don't want to rely on just that two-man game to get me something. Because it can assure you, Eric Spoelstra is so detail-oriented. He didn't need a timeout. They were already ready. And that was the reason Jimmy Butler was marking Nikola Jokic. And yes, you can see, should you not pass the ball? But you and I have played basketball long enough, Neil. The first thing on your mind, they will always tell you, make sure to get a shot up. Never let it be that you turned over the ball, that the game was lost on a pass. The first thing you have to do is to make sure a shot goes up. And I'll actually see this right. I don't think that they got into what they were doing early enough. Because if you miss, you still want the opportunity to grab a offensive rebound and kick back out again. And that is why I would say call a timeout, because you get into that situation earlier. First, you advance the basketball and not wasting 3 or 4 seconds bringing the ball up the court. You get a second opportunity before the play or before you get the ball into Jamal Murray's hands, in that you may be able to scheme somebody open, not likely, but then the other role players, who to me are just as significant, know that they can move off the ball instead of standing stagnant. Because in that situation, how it ran, right? As again, I understand modern basketball is you don't call the timeout, but Miami is prepared. Like when they didn't call the timeout, right? The team that looked more unprepared than anyone else was Denver. Miami was just waiting. Miami's like, okay, no problem. Jimmy phoned Nikola Jokic immediately. Like immediately, because he's like, all right, well, I know you're coming this two-man game. And when you get the screen, I'm going to switch. And like if you look, right, when the switch happens and it gets Jimmy Butler, right? You talk about passing ball, Neil. I know you forgot. Jimmy Butler poked away the ball from him later in that possession, again, taking more time off the clock. As I said, you have your first thought, you have to get a shot up. You can't end the game without getting a shot. Go ahead, Neil. No. What I do have a problem with, though, Neil, is the recent rhetoric of Jamal Murray versus Nikola Jokic. So I'm going to start with Dwayne Marcus because I know this is the part of the show that everybody was waiting for so patiently. Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray? Who is more important to this Denver team's
Justin Marvel, I'm going to answer your question with a question. In the last 2 seasons of Denver Nugget basketball, did they make it further than the last season Jamal Murray was healthy? Yes or no? No. Yes or no?
No. Well, no, because when Jamal Murray was last healthy, they were in the conference finals, and they did make another conference finals.
So the answer to the question is no. You see why you make things so difficult? It was a yes or no question, Justin.
No, but they did. Okay, well, they did.
I said, did they make it further than the last time Jamal Murray was healthy? The answer to the question is no. Last time Jamal Murray was healthy for the Denver Nuggets, they were in the conference finals. They lost to the eventual champion Los Angeles Lakers. In the 2 years Jamal Murray didn't play basketball, they were sitting at home in June, and Jokic was in Serbia riding horses. This is a very simple. This is open or shut, and I think we have gotten to a point with sports where we confuse the term important with the term best. I am not sitting here and arguing with any of you that Jamal Murray is the best player on this team. The answer to that question is unequivocally and emphatically Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is the best player on this basketball team, but he's not the most important player on the basketball team. If he's the most important player on the basketball team, he could drop 40-plus points and they could win a basketball game. That's not what happens. Here's the deal. Jamal Murray brings an element to this team that without him doesn't exist. And that is a reliable, consistent offensive threat from the point guard position. Is there any other point guard on this basketball team that can do the things that Jamal Murray does, forget on a night-to-night basis, in the postseason? I said this last week on my show to Jalen Dixon and TV on basketball. I'll say it on your show, Justin Marvel with Neil and Jalen Dixon again. What Jamal Murray did in the Western Conference Finals has never been done before. He averaged 30, 90. And we want to give all the credit, all the praise, all the adulation to Nikola Jokic. Nothing's wrong with Nikola Jokic and the game of basketball that he plays. But here's the deal. There is a level of simplicity and there is a level of stagnancy that existed when it was just Nikola Jokic on this basketball team. Now, I get it. Michael Porter Jr. was also in and out of the lineup due to injury. But here's the deal. When Jamal Murray was healthy, guess what Michael Porter Jr. he was doing? He was being in and out of the lineup due to injury. He's had 4 or 5 back surgeries in the last 3 years. So this is nothing new with Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray is the most important player on this basketball team. And that is just, it's really open and shut. Like, there's actually no argument you could make to suggest otherwise in this particular instance. And I get it. He's a 2-time MVP, and he's the best player on this team, and he is one of the best players in the league. But he's not the most important player on the team, is what we're arguing here. And I need for the rest of this segment, however long it lasts, is I need the 4 of us gentlemen here, a very distinguished gentleman. I need us to make sure that we are on the same page and we're answering the same question. I am telling you that Jamal Murray is the best player on this team. What I am telling you is he's the most important player on this team. Are there specific situations in basketball where the best player is also the most important player? Yes. Is that the case in Denver? No. The best player is Nikola Jokic. The most important player is Jamal Murray. And that is the reality of the situation in Denver. And anything contrary to that is not based in fact. It's just not.
Very good, Dwayne Marcus. You saw through the
Jay,
trap.
this segment was just... No. I knew this was coming. So, Jay, this segment is not for me and Neil. How about it?
I mean, the way I look at it is pretty simplistic, honestly. I mean, I understand what he means from Jamal Murray being a shot creator, what he's able to do individually as an offensive generator for this team, and it's important. We're talking about a team that once upon a time had Campazzo and dudes like that running at the point guard position, and it made creating offense much more difficult, right? And obviously that's really important when you talk about specifically the Western Conference in terms of guard play. You're talking about a conference where every single night it is not an easy picking. And so being able to have a guy who can compete at the guard position like Jamal Murray is huge. But I think the thing when you talk about importance, the reason why I believe that Nikola Jokic is more important is because of what point for his teammates. We just talked about earlier what was the one of the deciding factors for the Denver Nuggets losing this game. One of the bigger things for the Miami Heat schematically was shutting the water off for the other guys and forcing Nikola Jokic to be more of an offensive generator. Think about how that goes. You turn your best player into more of an offensive generator, and he says, okay, I can get 41 in 41 minutes. You know what the difference is? You know what the weird thing that everybody's glaring at that makes it where everybody says Nikola Jokic had a pretty odd game despite dropping 41? It's having 4 assists in the game for a guy who's been averaging double-digit assists in the postseason. That's because of the ability for him to be able to empower his teammates, to be able to create easy opportunities for themselves, to empower a guy like Aaron Gordon to go out in the first handful of possessions in game one and go get 12 easy points and establish physical dominance, so to speak, in the beginning of the game against a team that has made a name for themselves in the Miami Heat throughout this postseason off of physicality. He's able to empower guys like Bruce Brown, like Christian Brown, like Jeff Green to come in and play at a high level and play in ways that are conducive to easy basketball to the point that it does come off, like Neil kind of mentioned earlier, more flashiness than it is necessarily physicality or any kind of real conducive basketball. But it's because of the fact that Nikola Jokic makes the game look so much easier. You want to know something that's very intriguing about this season in particular? Aaron Gordon throughout the regular season had a career year across the board in terms of points per game and in terms of efficiency this year. You want to know something that's pretty crazy? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope played with LeBron James, and he just had his best career season shooting as a three-point shooter this year playing with Nikola Jokic. It's things like that that he's able to empower his teammates through the kind of offensive generation that he does off the ball, what he's able to do as a shot creator for others that makes him much more important. Because I think that what Jamal Murray does is something that you can look across the league and say there are a handful of guards that duplicably can do similar, if not better, at the same skill set that he provides, which is being a self-shot creator. You know the difference that separates Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray? It's his ability to get other people involved, because we can see that Nikola Jokic can drop 41. We see that being the case. But we also see the fact that when he can average double-digit assists, that's when his team is much more effective in terms of playing winning basketball. And then they get as far as they've gotten now. So I think that Jamal Murray is very important to this team. But in terms of this team being effective on a night-to-night basis as a unit, Nikola Jokic's function within the Denver Nuggets is more conducive to them playing winning basketball on a night-to-night basis.
I need us to stop this. Can we stop with the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is having a career year from three? Like his second best. Wait a second.
You said
his second best season. His career season from three before this one was 41%. He's shooting 42. Like, it's a 1% difference. Is it a difference? Yes.
Did you check the volume?
What?
Did you check the volume?
You want to check? Sure, I'll pull the stat up for you. You want to check volume? I don't really think volume matters. The point is it's a 1% difference, and 1% doesn't really change that much. If it did, there wouldn't be a lot of people in debt, Jalen Dixon. That's for sure. When Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shot 41% from three, which was in his last season in LA, he was averaging like 4 3-point attempts a game, and he hit 1.8 of them. He's actually averaging 0.2 less 3-pointers per game this season, and he's hitting the same amount. So is it really that much of a difference? No, it's not. But it is a fact, and it is an increase. So I'll give you the point on being able to identify a 1.3% increase of 3-point percentage as a tick in favor of Nikola Jokic. Here's the difference, though. This is a business about checks, and this is a business about championships. And while Jamal Murray was not playing basketball, the Denver Nuggets were not competing for championships. That's just the reality of the situation. And this isn't an albatross that's going to weigh down on Nikola Jokic and the greatness of his career. This isn't a demerit on Nikola Jokic's status. This isn't a black mark on his career. These are the facts. You mentioned that there are several guards across the league that can do the things that Jamal Murray does. That is so disrespectful to who Jamal Murray is as a basketball player, I would argue. I don't think there are that. I can name 2 point guards in the NBA today that, if placed in Denver, can consistently perform in the playoffs the way that Jamal Murray has consistently performed in the playoffs. And the only reason why I can do that is because one of them is a 4-time champion, and the other one has shown us that despite the situation that he's been subjected to, he can be an all-time great playoff performer. Those two people are Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry. And maybe Luka Doncic, want to throw Luka Doncic there as well, but I think he holds onto the ball a bit too much to be effective in Denver or on a team with Nikola Jokic. The fact remains, though, that what Jamal Murray does and what he brings to this offense, you talk about the gravity of Nikola Jokic, you talk about the attention that Nikola Jokic demands defensively, you could make an argument that Jamal Murray demands just as much gravity, if not a bit more, specifically on the perimeter than Nikola Jokic does. Now, when you talk about shooting the ball better for an Aaron Gordon, for a Bruce Brown, for a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, what I would say to you is, well, what position does Nikola Jokic play? Nikola Jokic is center. Now, is he a 3-level scorer? Yes, but he does most of his operating down low. So naturally, defenses are going to gravitate to the paint, which leaves these guys open. You can make the exact same argument that what Jamal Murray does and the gravity that he demands defensively on the perimeter does the exact same thing for those guys that operate down low, namely Nikola Jokic, but also all these other guys when they're making those baseline cuts and those cuts to the basket. I am not sitting here and trying to sell you on this idea that Jamal Murray is better than Nikola Jokic. Would I sell you on the idea that Nikola Jokic wouldn't be the player he is today if Jamal Murray never popped his ACL? Absolutely, because that is a fact. Would I sell you on the idea that there was a point in time in the not too distant past where Jamal Murray was the best player on this basketball team? Absolutely, because that is a fact. Things change, players evolve, life happens. I understand that. But when you look at how great Nikola Jokic is, and when you look at how great Jamal Murray is, what I would say is Jamal Murray's importance was shown in the absence of playoff success for the Denver Nuggets in the 2 years he was out. I'll put it to you this way. Steph Curry is the best player in Golden State. I think we can all agree that that is an open and shut case. You can make a legitimate argument that whether it's Klay Thompson or whether it's Draymond Green, I would say more so Draymond Green because he's the heart and soul of the offense and he's like the point guard even though he's really not. When they were hurt, guess where the Warriors were? They were picking 7th and 14th in the draft, and they were sitting at home. Like, they weren't doing anything. And it's not because Steph Curry's not great. It's because you need other people around him, and the more important players, or the more important players, specifically in the case of Draymond Green, wasn't there. That is the case in Denver. Jamal Murray's fantastic. He's a 25-point-per-game scorer in the playoffs. He's averaging 27 in this postseason, if I'm not mistaken. He's playing great basketball. And all I will continue to say is whether you think it's Murray or whether you think it's Jokic, the one thing that we can't let get lost in the sauce is just how important Jamal Murray is to this basketball team. And I think because of his injury and because of, as you were talking about on the show the other week, last week, Jalen, because of the astronomical ascension that Nikola Jokic has made in the 2 years of Jamal Murray's absence, we have seemingly forgot just how good Jamal Murray is and just how important he is to this basketball team. And all I'm saying is when you look at the totality of these players' careers, specifically over the last 4 years, and you look at the trajectory of the Denver Nuggets, when they were in the bubble in 2020, they had a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. In 2021, they were to win a championship. Sorry. In 2021, they were sent home. In 2022, they were sent home. Jamal Murray's back, and now they're competing for a championship. That is who Jamal Murray is, and that is what he brings to the table. And that is why, in my opinion, he's the more important player. That doesn't mean he's better at this point, but he's more important.
I mean, I think I understand. I understand what you're saying.
I want Neil to jump in here quickly.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Neil.
So, Dwayne, I was applauding you earlier because I thought you saw the trap. Because this question is very open-ended. You know, it's like, who is more important, Jamal Murray or Jokic, right?
No, I mean, it's not my question. That's the question everyone's been asking. So I said, well, if the kids are debating this, let's just put this out there for the kids.
Well, let's do it for the kids. You know, Justin love the kids. So, what I will say is this, right? Dwayne, that was an impassionate speech. I love it. It was rousing. I felt the emotion, and you brought compelling arguments, right? But within your speech, you seem to insinuate that if it weren't for Jamal Murray, and Jamal Murray alone, these men would not be competing for championships. Brother mine, if Nikola Jokic stopped playing basketball tomorrow, that is the end of that, you know.
Wait. No, that's not what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying.
So okay.
I'll let you finish, but no, that's not what I'm saying.
Right. Okay. So I'll say this, right? Jamal Murray is important to the team. He's very important to the team and very critical to them winning a championship. No doubt. Nikola Jokic needs somebody to bring up the ball, and he needs someone to pass to get those kick-out threes. And I'd rather kick him out to Jamal Murray, right? It's no doubt. But please let us understand that Nikola Jokic is a bag of murder walking around, you know. He is necessary for them to be successful. Last night, Nikola Jokic had a bad game. Now, I know it may look like offensively he was great. He had 41 points, etc., etc., etc. But here are some numbers where I think that it was a bad game for him. He had 4 assists instead of his usual 10. And he turned over the ball 5 times, which is a little up from 3.5, right? Jamal Murray played there and thereabouts. Yes, he averages 27 points a game in these 4 seasons, but he had 18 points on 50-something% shooting. 3-point was shooting pretty well, just below 50%. And he turned over the ball once. Jamal Murray had 10 assists. Jamal Murray played well last night, you know. Don't let's get tired. But Jokic did not, because he saw his offense first, and that's not Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic distributes the ball. He scores the basketball. He attacks you in every which way. You want to guard me tight? No problem. Here's a dish off to get my teammates involved. Or you're gonna spread the floor now. Let me go to work and get these rebounds and flourish on the offensive end. Yes, he had 41 points on a good deal shooting. But what was telling to me, gentlemen, is the assists and the turnovers. He did not have a good night, by my opinion, for Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray had a pretty decent night. He had a pretty good night, actually. He had a good night. Didn't have his usual 27, but he had 18 points. If Nikola Jokic has a off night by his standard, again, they're not winning this championship. Jamal Murray could continue to play how he's playing. He could continue hitting the 27, the 30. He could play however he wants to play. But I guarantee you, if Nikola Jokic does not take care of the ball better and have opportunities to pass the ball to teammates to get them involved and be engaged, they're going to have a problem. So dare I say that Nikola Jokic is more important than Jamal Murray in this finals. I would say that it is obviously contextual. It is very subjective based on the teams that they're playing. Like, for example, if you tell me against the Lakers, if you had tell me against Phoenix, then yeah, sure, Jamal Murray was important, but then he was more important than Jokic. But please don't let us mistake it. If this man is not averaging or at least getting 7-8 assists when the night come and having low turnovers, you gotta rely on Michael Porter Jr. to help beat you. KCP,
because
I just saying.
But the point
hold
about
on, because we gotta move on from this segment. Unfortunately, the thing is, reason why I understand why people think it's Jamal Murray, but you have to also look at the drop off for replacements. So Jay rightfully said you're moving from Jamal Murray to Campazzo, right? And so when you talk about importance, look at what happened. I'm glad you brought up. Look at what happened in 2 years. Jamal Murray did not play, right? 2020, the Nuggets made the Western Conference Finals, and then they still make it back to the playoffs. You do know that they've still made another Western Conference Finals in there, right? Even without Jamal Murray. No, do the opposite. Let's say Jamal Murray is playing his basketball and take Nikola Jokic out. Are we saying that this Denver team is still a playoff basketball team? And the answer is probably no.
Yes. No. And you know what?
No.
You can say yes.
All right,
because
gentlemen, don't let me argue semantics, because they could
No. What I'm saying is, and this is a legit belief. I'm not saying this just because the Nikola Jokic that exists in 2023 did not exist in 2020. If 2020 Jokic is not on this basketball team, the Nuggets are still a playoff team. 2020 Jokic is light years past. Today's Jokic is light years past what he was then. He's developed way too much. He wasn't doing then what he's doing now. He wasn't the facilitator of the offense and the way focal point of the offense. Jamal Murray was.
He was still the facilitator. The offense still ran through him, but like the drop off levels. Like, could you imagine this Denver team with Nikola Jokic's replacement, as opposed to what we saw with Jamal Murray's replacement for those 2 years? Remember, again, Denver Nuggets still made a Western Conference Finals in this span. But I would love to continue this argument, but we're already an hour and a half. So quickly, guys, very quickly, we keep it short. Tyler Herro, after missing almost all the playoffs because he got injured in game 1 of the opening series against Milwaukee. Jay, does he make an impact on his return because he's likely to play in game 3?
I think he can because his shot creation is really important, and Miami to get more offensive generation is obviously great for them when you're going up against a team that can score at the clip that Denver can. I think my biggest worry about Miami when they talk about bringing a guy like that back in is Tyler Herro is he operates kind of like volume 6-man shooters do, like the Jordan Clarksons of the world, the Lou Williams, the guys who come off the bench and shoot the ball at a high clip, but they got to get their attempts in to be able to get effective. That's tough for a team like this that has seen a lot of guys make a name for themselves through this run. We mentioned it beforehand. Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson. They were able to dust off Duncan Robinson in this postseason and make his contract look a little bit more competent again after an entire regular season and all of last postseason where he essentially was a non-factor, right? So all of these guys are getting into their groove and playing at a really high level at a really important time for them. Now you bring in a guy like this who basically his offense is predicated off of rhythm. He is going to need to be able to get his attempts. I think it's good that you get a guy that's going to be as aggressive offensively as him, but I'm scared to see whose minutes got to get hit in the fray of it. I think he can be a really good addition, but it depends on who's going to have to
And
take a
then
hit for
quickly,
him.
then Jay, who wins the finals and why?
I still have Denver. I still feel like they can score at too much of a high clip. I feel like at the end of the day, yes, forcing Nikola Jokic to be a scorer is one of the best things you can do. But I also think at the same time that Bam Adebayo has struggled with him. So with that being the case, there's a lot of other ways that if you're just gonna say Nikola Jokic dropped 60, I think he has the capability of doing that. But I also think there's the capabilities of scheduling X's and O's that factor towards saying, okay, you're gonna well, guess what? We're going to find other ways to unlock those guys and maybe different ways than what they're used to still give Nikola Jokic an opportunity to unlock the rest of his team the way he's done all postseason.
Dwayne, same thing. First, do you think Tyler Herro's return is going to make an impact or a significant impact in the series?
Well, he's not returning on Wednesday because his hand is still sore. So at the earliest, he'll return for Thursday. Will it make an impact? Yes. And Tyler Herro himself mentioned that he's not going to rush a return because of how well the role players has been playing, and he recognizes that when he comes back, he'll be taking a lot of those shots away. As far as who wins the finals, it's still going to be the Heat, and it's still going to be the Heat in 6.
Can't beat that. Neil, same questions first. Tyler Herro's possible return.
His possible return, I agree with what Dwayne said, but if he does come back, he will make an impact. It's just obviously to integrate him into it so that you don't mess up the flow of Gabe Vincent and Matt Strus. And who wins? I still gotta go with Denver. However, I really want the Heat to win this series. Right? Right now, I've seen a lot of fight from Miami, but with Denver, you know, if they make the right adjustments, they're well coached, they have the firepower, I think they could put away Miami. But no, I'm not gonna say it. I want the Heat to win. Let me just leave it there. I was gonna say something blasphemous, but let's leave it there.
I know what you're going to say along the lines of Jimmy Butler, but yeah, we'll leave that for another time. I'm going to actually, be different, obviously. I don't think Tyler Herro's return is going to make an impact simply because twofold. Y'all touched on it. He's going to be taking shots away from the role players, and I don't think Eric Spoelstra wants that. Two, he is a shot creator, but how Miami's offense has been running, they've been running ball through Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and to a lesser extent Kyle Lowry, and that's been proven successful for them. I don't think that they want or need Tyler Herro for that as the moment, even though, as you all mentioned, their offense is very up and down, inconsistent when it can be, but they've been hitting three at a very high clip this postseason. And three, and most importantly, the reason I think that if he does return, it'll be on a very limited basis. I think we've all forgotten Tyler Herro is an atrocious defender, absolutely atrocious. And the way that Miami has defended this entire postseason has been the reason behind their success in this postseason. They have been absolutely great defensively. That's part of the reason why Duncan Robinson has gotten back on the floor. Like, yes, he struggled during the regular season, couldn't hit shots, and he's doing that now. But we know the Heat culture and Eric Spoelstra. You're not playing if you're not playing defense. And I think now Duncan Robinson has gotten the memo and has committed to that end of the floor. Is Tyler Herro coming off an injury and doing that? I don't know. And he's a small and I don't want to say frail player, but he's not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination. And Denver is a bigger team. If he does return, I don't think he gets as many minutes as we think he is, even though he did leave as the team's third best player. I'm going to go with my prediction Denver in 6. I said it from the start. Maybe Denver in 7. I just have to lean towards the league's best player. I mean, he's definitely the best player in this series in Nikola Jokic, but I think right now he's the league's best player. And I'm not going to bet against him. Yes, the Heat have made great adjustments in terms of disconnecting him from the rest of his teammates. But there are a level of cerebral players in this league, LeBron James obviously being one of them. And I think Nikola Jokic, in terms of his IQ and understanding basketball, is almost as high as that, if not the same right now. I don't think there is a player currently playing basketball that thinks and sees the game as high as Nikola Jokic. And I have to believe that he is going to make adjustments as well, along with Mike Malone. So I'm going to go Denver in 6 or 7. But as I said early on, it's not that I'm saying Miami cannot win these NBA finals. Go ahead, Dwayne, you get the last word.
I don't have anything left to say except that Nikola Jokic averaged 20 points in 2020 and he averages 25 now. So
Fair enough.
Nikola Jokic not on the Denver Nuggets in 2021, they still make the playoffs.
Well, unfortunately, we'll never find out, and Denver thankfully didn't have to either. Jay, it's your first time here. You get the privilege. Tell the people how to find you and what you got coming up next.
Yeah, man. I mean, I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. Definitely would want to come on again. This is one of those kind of conversations that I feel like when you talk about the NBA Finals, it gives us a chance to be a little bit more nuanced because it's not so much going on. So it gives us a chance to kind of lock in and stuff. So I really appreciate the conversation. In terms of where you guys can find me, at the Hit Your Free Throws pod on Instagram and TikTok is the main thing in terms of me and TV on Basketball's podcast. You can find me and TV on social media as well. TV on Basketball for him. For me, the Knockdown J as well on Instagram and TikTok. And in terms of moving forward, man, I just think that like right now we're just locked into the NBA Finals. Obviously, the NBA Draft is one of my favorite things. When I first started up as a writer, the NBA Draft was the first thing I ever wrote about. So in terms of this summer, I really want to establish a blog presence. So that's something that's kind of a little bit of a new trend. I think the NBA Draft is going to be the first place where I really, really get my feet wet. So that's just some of the little stuff for right now.
Please make sure to look in the comment section below the description to find Jay and TV. As you all know, TV is a regular part of this family. Dwayne is also family here. He may not know or he may not act like it, that he's that stepchild that comes in at Christmas to cause problems, but he's still a part of this family.
Why am I catching strays in the outro? That's ridiculous.
All the same, like everyone knows you, but still plug yourself, Dwayne, and tell us how to find you.
God, I don't think I want to come back after that. Subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network on YouTube and follow the Give Us a Shot Network on all platforms at Give Us a Shot. Jalen will be on the show tomorrow so we can yell about Nikola Jokic some more, so that'll be great.
Yes, please do subscribe to those guys that Give Us a Shot. Sorry, Dwayne, were you finished?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, please go subscribe to those guys that Give Us a Shot Network. It's not just Dwayne and his great Go Talk with Marcus. It is also JT and the Dawn, and I want to say stuff about sports with JT and Bert. I want to say, and so much more great channels over there. Y'all know Neil from being in front of the camera here, but Neil does so much more than hashtag this Justin. So Neil, go right ahead.
Right. So along with this, Justin, the production work I do on that, I also produce another podcast called The Senate. I also do the Bad Movie Crew, but we're on a little hiatus. But The Senate podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Barbados time. I do not know the other times around the world, so you may have to Google it. That is a podcast that talks about men in the context of life, love, and relationships. And that is from the perspective of two Black Caribbean men, two fathers. So yeah, check us out. We do content 5 days a week, along with the live streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. We have shorter content, which is a bit more wild and hilarious. But you can check us out. We are on YouTube, the Senate Podcast, Instagram, the Senate Podcast 246, Facebook. But don't really use Facebook, Senate Podcast. We are not on Twitter. So yeah, Senate Podcast. Check us out.
Please, 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 all three of these great gentlemen provide great content. So before I tell you how to find us consistently, please, please, please like, subscribe, follow all of their content, great content creators they are. And then when you're done, follow us. We are right here every Monday night on YouTube, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We are indeed just a YouTube show. We are not your typical podcast. For our short form content, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us actually on Facebook. Yeah, there are some of us who are old and use Facebook. That is hashtag this just in. You do not want Max Kellerman, so please put in the hashtag, the original this just in. Even the secondary this just in is making space for, I think they're the casualty of Pat McAfee coming over to ESPN. So, I'm not really upset about it. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, that's where you can find us. And every Monday night right here. So for Dwayne Marcus, for Jay, and for Neil, I am indeed Justin of hashtag this Justin signing out. See you again on Monday. And that is only after you go and subscribe and follow these nice gentlemen.
Peace and love.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No. I
Come take a look at my dream world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the